Welcome. So some short time ago, when I was considering the opening statement, and when I say short time, I mean about 15 minutes ago, Virginia Van Sluis, who's the, get some signals here. Better? Yeah. I don't think I've ever been accused of being too quiet. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Obviously, the last 24, 48 hours, we've transpired this entire Rice County Fairgrounds into something special. And it is beyond words that I can absolutely express in any format that would do diligence to the absolute overwhelming support that's been poured out by this entire community. Without question, some years ago when Vietnam veterans started to return from the battlefront, and as they walked through the gates of wherever they came into the country here in the U.S., there's no question in my mind that many of them had no idea about the battle that would be forthcoming after leaving the battlefield. They are with us here this evening, and we absolutely, unquestionably support you in all manners, all ways. And we're hoping that with this event happening here over the next 5 days, that you'll understand the support that is around you. And we hope that you have seen this over the course of the last few days, particularly when we brought the wall in yesterday from Owatonna. Amazing community support. Honor Guard Commander, take charge of your squads. Please rise.
Personnel, present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Honor guard, take charge. Dismiss your units.
Order. Arm. Left face. Forward. Mark. Left, right, left. Open left. 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 Right. Left. Right. Left. 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 Left, right, left. 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 Left, right, left. All right. Right. Wow. Come left, hard. Left. Left.
Let us recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Originally, I was supposed to do the pledge myself, but seeing all the support that we've had for the Vietnam veterans, myself included, I got choked up. And as most of you know that know me, I'm never at a loss for words, but the support we've had from the community, from fellow veterans, thank you.
You may be seated. Honor guard, color guard, if you can find a place to sit, please do. This event thus far has been nothing short of absolutely phenomenal. Starting 18 months ago, when I was approached by Virginia Van Sluis, who has been absolutely amazing with her drive to get this event off the ground and to help us get it to this day. Along with her husband, Peter Van Sluis, thank you. God bless. Along with her husband, Peter, Virginia has been working beneath the radar diligently and keeping Peter and I in line as we've moved forward with this process. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to the main reason we're standing here tonight. Virginia Van Sluis.
I'll stand right here.
Well, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We have a few honored guests with us, and I'm pleased about that. Galen Bundham and his wife Marcia, thank you so much for graciously accepting to attend and lay a wreath for us at our soft opening. Really appreciate it. I see that Mary Gates has come back along with her son. Thank you so much. And you'll hear from her son later on, even though it's not in the program. I'm honored to stand before you and humbled by what this project has meant to so many in this community and to myself. As Kurt said, my name's Virginia Van Sluis, and I'm an officer in the Faribault Elks and a chairperson for the Veteran Committee. Although the projects that I do for the veterans are very rewarding, I wanted to do something that would impact not only veterans in our community, but all of our community, to let them know exactly what the veterans did, and especially the Vietnam veterans, the era that I grew up in. I began researching about the wall and quickly found out that I could not accomplish this as an ELK member by myself. Through the conversations with Kirk, we decided that they would like to accomplish this too, and we've joined forces. After 16 long months, the wall is finally here, and I'm humbled by what the core team has been able to accomplish. To all of them, I say thank you for your many, many hours of dedication, for listening to what my ideas were, showing your ideas, and then again going back to most of my ideas. I appreciate it. That's not to say that I like to be a control group. Might have worked out. As the arrival date came closer, that number increased as far as volunteers from the community, and it was worrying that we just did not realize at the beginning of this. There were 5 of us that started it, how it was going to increase. But with determination, dedication, we did. Many of you remember the music extravaganza that we had back in April that drew about 900 people and raised quite a few funds that allowed us to have some of the things that you saw today, the doves, the bells over here for the sea later. But it was an outpouring from the community that let us know that, yes, we did the right thing by staying the track and getting this project going. But the main objective from the start was to ensure the project would be presented with dignity and respect for every person's name on that wall. Let that come from it. For every person's name on that wall and for those who fought in Vietnam. As you pass in front of the wall, keep in mind that those names etched in stone are there for all eternity, and they represent a loss of a husband, a father, a brother, a sister, a cousin, or maybe just a friend. To every name on the wall, I say to them, rest in hell, rest well, soldier, for you who spent your time in hell. For those who fought and returned, I say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service to your country. Thank you for the sacrifices you gave to all and to all Vietnam veterans a long overdue welcome home. I'll leave you with this quote that I saw, and I thought it was very fitting for most everyone, and especially the soldiers that came back that had a hard time with their day-to-day struggles. One day at a time, this is enough. Don't look back and grieve over the past, for it is gone. Do not be troubled about the future, for it is yet to come. Live in the present and make it so beautiful that it will be worth remembering.
And tonight, they have a presentation that they would like to make on their behalf in support of our veterans community. So I'd like to welcome them to the stage at this time, please. Rice County Sheriff's Department, Faribault Police, Faribault Fire, Minnesota State Troopers. Faribault Police Chief, Andy Boland.
Thank you and good evening. Tonight we're humbled and honored to be here in front of you. In front also is, on the stage here, Sheriff Troy Dunn, Faribault Fire Chief Dusty Deans, and Trooper Swanhorse with the Minnesota State Patrol. And on the campaign ribbon you can see that we have "Thank you for your service," all of our patches. That's police, fire, and EMS. This was a thought that public safety had for those that have served. I can say in 1986 I joined the Army, and my first sergeant during the Gulf War served in Vietnam, was Special Forces, and became a mentor throughout my life. A man of great honor, so I recognize my top tonight, as well as all the veterans here in the community, all the veterans that have served, and public safety, police, fire, and EMS, especially recognize our Vietnam veterans. We're giving this flag today to our local Legion, but it's for all of our clubs. We couldn't single out one veteran. We're going to pass this flag on to our American Legion, but we wanted to humbly say thank you. We stand with you. This is the flag that hung from our fire truck yesterday as the large procession came into town, and we simply want to say thank you.
As Commander of Post 43, I accept this flag. We will have it at our post, and a short time later we'll be passing it on to the other posts in the area. And I think Kurt was going to mention some of the honor guard that were here tonight. Thank you.
So with us this evening, with the Honor Guard and Color Guard units, Kenyon, Northfield, New Prague, Morristown, Owatonna, Apple Valley, Faribault Color Guard and Honor Guard. Please give these folks a round of applause. Looking good, boys. And girls, I might add. I'm going to bring Virginia back up to introduce our first speaker.
We're going to hear from Steve Bauer, who was in the Marine Corps during Vietnam, and he's been gracious enough to speak about some of his time that he experienced. So give him a welcome here.
Bring this down to my size. Well, welcome. It's great to see so many attending this evening. I really didn't think there'd be this many people here, and I'm just flabbergasted. Thanks to all the veterans. Thank you for your service. All the families and friends of the veterans, thank you for your support. A special thank you to the organizers and volunteers and all in attendance that made this event the welcome home we never had. I'm Stephen Robert Bauer. I served in the 26th Marine Regiment from December 1967 to August 1970. These boots here carried me through 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. So if they look like they've been to hell and back, they have. Never could figure out why I hung on to them, but now I know why. At my 10-year high school class reunion, I think it was about 1977, a classmate came up to me and told me, I heard you were killed in Vietnam. I said, no, I'm still around. I'm still walking around. If I didn't get killed, I didn't get even hurt. I didn't get hurt in any way over there, except for maybe a few scratches from non-fighter. So about 20 years after that, I was looking on the internet and looking at the names on the wall of people from Minnesota. Well, lo and behold, here's Stephen Robert Bauer. And if he's on panel 33W, line 091. Same middle name, same church, same branch of service. He was from North St. Paul. Wish I could have met him. Anyway, that's how that rumor got spread around. So I was lucky. Always very lucky. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time over there, you don't come back. In December of '68, after my first tour, I was coming home. And getting home was all on my mind. I had extended for another tour, and I was coming home for a 30-day leave. You could go any place in the free world. They give you 30 days free leave if you volunteered for another tour. Well, I came home. Really wasn't any other place I think somebody wanted to go. As we left Vietnam, we stopped at Okinawa, and then we were there for about a day or so, and then took off from Okinawa, and the ride got really rough towards the end of the runway. Well, the captain came over after we had taken off and said we had blown tires. I don't know if he meant blown tires or tire or how many, but the takeoff had gotten rough until we got into the air. So we settled in for our 11-hour flight to San Francisco. It was a party atmosphere. You have a plane load full of Marines coming home. The pillow fights, stewardesses joining in. As we approached the San Francisco airport, stewardesses came through and told us to remove any sharp objects out of our pockets, position ourselves for crash landing. I looked out the window, saw the runway lined with ambulances, fire trucks, whatnot. I thought, oh boy, make it back from Vietnam, die on the runway. Well, the whole trip I hadn't thought about that blown tire. And I think the stewardesses knew that we'd be required to follow emergency precautions and procedures during the 11 hours in the air. As we touched down, the engines reversed immediately. We were at a complete stop. It seemed like we stopped from here to the grandstand. I'm sure it was farther than that. But we stopped in a hurry. We all disembarked from the airplane right on the runway. and everything was fine. Some years later, you know, Hollywood produced a lot of movies about the Vietnam War. I didn't find many of them to be very realistic. So, you know, Vietnam vets didn't really talk about their experiences in Vietnam much. And one of the movies I was watching in the 70s, I walked out of because there was so much vulgar language. I just thought, you know, I didn't like the way they were depicting this. Can't remember what movie that was. So anyway, after about 30 years, I returned home from the service. Our family was watching a movie, and Forrest Gump. So my kids were getting older. I think my youngest son was about 16. Well, it became apparent that night that I hadn't talked about Vietnam. I said to my wife that the jungle portrayal in Forrest Gump really looked like the landscape in Vietnam, more so than any other movies I'd seen. My son says, "Well, like you'd know." He didn't know. So it seemed it was a whole different lifetime, one that I obviously had not shared. Going back, this isn't quite in complete chronological order. I started my service in the Marine Corps in 1966. Out of boot camp, I went to radio telegraph school. I was sent to Camp Lejeune. And while at Camp Lejeune, I got involved in some rifle competition, intramural competition. I outshot everyone in that intramural competition at Camp Lejeune, and I won the Grand Aggregate Trophy. And the rifle and pistol team was hot to get me on their team. A new shooter. They took me to Cherry Point. We placed there and got trophies there, and they were just as happy as a lark. And then they were going to get me on the rifle and pistol team. Well, before they did that, within about 2 weeks, or seemed like about 2 weeks, I don't remember exactly the timeline, but I had orders for Vietnam. I told them, I've got orders for Vietnam. Well, we're going to see if we can get you out of that. We want you on the team. About a week later, they come back and said, "No, I can't get you out of that." So off I went for training to go to Vietnam. We kind of got attached to companies within our battalion, and at different times we'd be at different companies, and you always have two of you, and we just go wherever they went. We carried a Remington Model 700 308 with a Redfield 3-9 variable scope and a 45. Well, after everyone else in the group was carrying automatic rifles, M16s, and it was really thick out there. And I never felt very comfortable carrying a single-shot, bolt-action rifle in this jungle. And you couldn't lay down any firepower. You didn't want to shoot unless you could really have something to shoot at. You couldn't just hose down an area. And so I didn't feel like we were being utilized right. And then other times, depending where you were, sometimes we had a Starlight scope mounted on an M16. Well, those scopes are about that big around and about that long, and they weigh about 20 pounds. Usually we didn't carry those out in the jungle, but if we were stationed someplace on a hill, we'd have that. Letters from home were the means of communication for servicemen in Vietnam. You know, there was no internet, there was no cell phones or email or FaceTime. If you were lucky, you'd get to place a call on through the Mars station, and they put the call through to California, from California to your home. But every time you said something, you'd have to say over, and so was the person on the other, the party you're talking to, your parents or girlfriend or wives or whoever you had. So that wasn't very handy. It was always a treat to hear about somebody or find somebody that you knew, from home. At one point, I found out that our neighbor was stationed in Da Nang in the Air Force. So I wrote back to my folks and said, "Can you send me his address?" So I got that, and then I walked several miles to find him, and found this Air Force base here he's stationed. Of course, they took my rifle away. They wouldn't let me take it on the base. I thought, wow, what's going on here? I got on there, and I finally found this little hoochie stand, and I walked in there, and there was had a refrigerator. And I thought, what's going on here? They had electricity. They had all kinds of things we didn't have. Anyway, that's how I found Robbie LeCan. Yeah, some of you might be related or know Robbie LeCan. It was just a treat to see him. Another time, went to the USO building. I think I was on my way to go on R&R or something like that. And I went to sign the log, the visitor's book. The name before me was Steve Shabby. He's right here. So, found you. It's like a little reunion. Yeah, a little reunion we had. Yeah, that was great. Okay, well, when I first got sent out into the jungles with the patrol or with the company, I didn't know much. You know, I mean, you're kind of green. And we'd get these long rations. It's kind of like dehydrated food. You added water to it. And they had chicken and rice. They had chili con carne, spaghetti and meatballs. You just add water and rehydrate it and you could eat it. Hardly ever got to eat it hot. You just add water to it and eat it cold. Every packet came with coffee, with sugar and cream, or it'd come with hot chocolate. Well, you know, none of that stuff is good cold. So someone told me, well, you save all those packets. I said, well, why? He said, well, when you get enough, and we got some place where you can heat some water up, you mix it all together. We call it Tomoko. I thought, great! It was the best tasting stuff. You wouldn't think you could ever enjoy such a mixture, a concoction, you know, but, oh, it tasted great. It was hot. You could actually have time to enjoy a hot drink. Mix all that chocolate, creamer, sugar, coffee together, and it was all instant. And then someone showed me that you can take a piece of plastic explosive, C4, and break off a little piece, about as big as the end of your finger, your last knuckle. And you put a match on that, and it burns like a blowtorch. You put that under your canteen, and you'd have hot water by the time that thing burned out. It burns very hot. Well, you know, being new, you're a little leery. Well, this is an explosive, you know. What are you doing? Kind of scared me, but I got used to it. I think you have to have a blasting cap to set it off, because I always carried about a pound of that in my backpack, and I was always worried I'd get shot through the backpack and get blown up. But I was assured that it takes a blasting cap to make it explode. Okay, somebody called me, Greg Paquette called me, asked me if I'd read this little poem just before I left home to come down here tonight. And I hope I haven't gone over my time. I'm okay?
It's okay.
All right. It goes like this. There is a place in country where I do not want to go. A place that holds a sadness that I already know. I know exactly where it is. I know when it took form. I know it tells the story of the children in the storm. I'm told that I belong there, and that welcome I would be, for someday I must face them if I want to be set free. I know that they are waiting to tell me it's all right, but I shouldn't let their falling still haunt me in the night. I don't want to take that journey, but that is not my say. You have to walk the road ahead and take it day by day. But still I fear that coming dawn, for too much I will recall. How can I ever face them, all those names upon the wall? The quiet found at battle's end, a silence we still hear, just another rite of passage in the land of sudden fear. Signed by Delta Blue. Anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of veterans up there that could be up here speaking. I'm no hero, but but I walked amongst them. Thank you.
It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory. You were the one with all the strength. Beautiful face behind the pain. Oh, so long. Beautiful smile behind the mask. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. And I can fly higher than an eagle. You are beneath my wings. Might appear to go unnoticed.
Haessig, what a wonderful voice, and thank you very much for coming up here. And did you know that this afternoon, at 1 o'clock when they had the opening, we had an eagle flying? A puppet. How appropriate was that? All right, the next person that is going to come up to speak, enlisted in the United States Army Reserve, July 9th, 1962. He was commissioned second lieutenant in the infantry in 1972. He served in every command position from platoon through battalion. The last battalion commander of the 3D Battalion, 3D Infantry, the Old Guard. Promoted to colonel in 1995. Concluded his 42-year military career as the deputy commander, support for the 88th Regional Support Command until his retirement in 2004. And if you ever want to listen to him speak on the radio, in which I first heard him, you listen to the Minnesota Military Radio Channel. I think it's 11:30 on the weekend mornings. I think it's a Sunday morning, anyway, or Saturday morning. I can't remember. That's the first time I've heard him. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Ambassador James Lundell.
Thank you, Commissioner Bauer. Before I share my prepared remarks, I would like to just comment. I was an observer today during your opening ceremony, and it was truly a class act. And I know some of my comments are repetitive, but they're worth sharing. Because for 16 hard months, Virginia and her entire, Kirk, Peter, and your entire core team, I think you refer to them as the core team, have worked hard. And I just want to recognize publicly the Faribault Elks, the American Legion, the VFW, the Sons of the American Legion, the 40 and 8, the Marine Corps League, and the Faribault Foundation. Would you folks, if you're not already standing, please stand to be recognized. And ladies and gentlemen, we owe them a great round of appreciation. You sometimes have to read a book. But historians will tell us that the Vietnam War spanned a 20-year period from 1955 to 1975, and it is still America's longest war. The U.S. first sent advisors and Green Beret Special Forces operators in the late 1950s and early 60s. And if you do the math, it actually started under President Eisenhower, continued under President Kennedy, and so forth. But as tensions mounted and threats from the North increased, President Lyndon Johnson committed combat forces late in 1965 to help the South Vietnamese government stem the tide of communist aggression. The U.S. first sent in 3,500 Marines in March of 1965, soon followed by the 1st Cavalry Division Air Mobile, a new combat organization out of Fort Benning, Georgia. And I found this very ironic as I researched this organization. They arrived in Vietnam on September 11, 1965. That date would come back to renew its time in history. When the 1st Cavalry Division Air Mobile arrived, that brought our total of 125,000 soldiers into the country. This new Air Mobile Division brought new weapon systems and new transportation into the battlefield. Steve said it earlier. He carried it, or some of the soldiers carried an M16. That was a new weapon system. The M60 machine gun was new. The M79 grenade launcher. Soldiers were transported by a new thing called a helicopter, the UH-1D, the utility helicopter called the Huey. They also had a medium lift helicopter, the CH-47, was called the Chinook, or sometimes simply the Hook. And the artillery was also moved by larger pieces of helicopter equipment called the CH-54 heavy lift helicopter, known as the Sky Crane. This year, will mark the 51st anniversary of U.S. combat operations in Vietnam that began in 1965. The 1st Cavalry Division, specifically the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Air Mobile, received their baptism by fire in a 3-day battle, the 14th to the 16th of November 1965. This was the first major battle between U.S. forces and the Communist North Vietnamese Army. This battle was well documented in a book entitled "We Were Soldiers Once and Young." It was co-written by Lieutenant General Hal Moore and Joseph Galloway. And a few years later, it was made into a movie. It starred Mel Gibson. The 1st of the 7th Cavalry, under the command of then Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, conducted an air mobile assault with 450 soldiers into a landing zone named X-Ray in the Ai Drang Valley. Little did they know that when they had landed into the teeth of a lion and were immediately surrounded by over 2,000 enemy soldiers. Over the course of the next 3 days, that battle and landing zone X-Ray would be a battle for life or death, and would become one of the most savage and significant battles of the entire war. It is my honor, it is my privilege to recognize one of those great soldiers and a survivor of that battle, Specialist 4 Galen Bungham from Hayfield, Minnesota. Galen, would you please stand to be recognized? Thank you. As the clock moved forward and the calendar moved forward, by 1969 we had committed over 500,000 troops into the theater. By war's end, served in uniform.
May we have our flower presenters please step forward. From Claremont, Minnesota, Sergeant William Willis Griffith. Spec 4, Clyde Marvin Lee. Sergeant David Allen Wenzel. From the town of Denison, Spec 4, Gerald Francis Tracy. From the town of Ellendale, Lance Corporal Dale Lester Otto. From Faribault, Minnesota, PFC Gary Lee Burke. PFC Thomas Dell Eastman. Major Robert Francis Grunman. From Hayfield, PFC James A. Cran. Warrant Officer Michael L. Koskovich. From the town of Janesville, Staff Sergeant David Anthony Fasnock. From the town of Casson, PFC Donald Lewis Olive. From Kenyon, Captain Benjamin Franklin Danielson. PFC Gordon Marlowe Gunnis. Second Lieutenant David Leonard Buglin. From the town of Lake City, PFC Michael Joseph Glynn. From LeSueur, First Lieutenant John Franklin Meyer. PFC Dwight Dwayne Collison. From Medford, Spec 4 Raven Paul Spindler. From Northfield, Captain Bill Wayne Dietz. PFC William Arthur Aaron. From Owatonna, Spec 4 Lee Hamilton Harrow. PFC Larry Robert Kellum. Sergeant Sidney William Clemmer, Sergeant Curtis Edward Ringhofer, PFC John Francis Strong, Sergeant William Joseph Sikora, Staff Sergeant Walter Otto Trammell, Sergeant John George Whitten. From Pine Island, PFC Russell Emil Krause, PFC Herman Francis Rubin. From Red Wing, PFC Charles Lee Hoshill, PFC Frederick H. Hemphill, PFC Michael John Lally, Major Thomas Edward Reitman. From Waterville, PFC John Robert Duspavic, Lance Corporal Glenn Henry Duspavic. And from the town of Welch, Corporal Lee Charles Kinney. The 38 fallen represented on the crosses, the Field of Honor in front of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. These 38 names that I've just read, and the flowers placed here, represent all 1,073 Minnesotans killed in action. And they also represent all 58,300 names on the wall. Bear witness to the wall. The names speak volumes. At this time, we honor and recognize the service of the Vietnam veterans with the Bell of Honor. If you are able, please stand. Bell of Honor. Along with the 38 names on the Field of Honor, Vietnam veterans killed in action, we also have one additional Field of Honor representing the 100 Minnesotans killed in action since 9/11. With the current wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, our young men and women who serve on the front line of battle, as we sit here tonight and enjoy this moment, are faced with extreme grave danger. Please visit the Field of Honor for the Vietnam veterans and for our young Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who were killed in action. And at this time, I would like to invite Lisa Cundy to say.
I wasn't prepared for an introduction either. So the interesting part of my story is that I'm one of a few, I guess, that is still serving on active duty, and then also my family history. What you may not know is that my tie to Vietnam was not just my father's casualty, but the fact that I was able to go to Laos. It was 10 years ago, as a matter of fact, that I was able to go with the trip of Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, 15 of us all told, left Hawaii to go to Laos to look for the remains of my father. We spent 45 days digging through the ground, most of the time with our hands, and trying to find anything that we could. I was at the scene of probably one of the largest search and rescue operations in history, and the gravity of that was not lost being there. Another thing that was interesting to me was that I was side by side with 60 local Laotians who helped us do that as well. So one of the nights we were allowed to go to the local village and have dinner with the local villagers. And I remember this because as I met the villagers, they said, you know, their reply to me upon meeting a family member, because I really have been the only family member that's gone back on one of these trips, and I don't know if anyone's done it since, was they said, we only look forward, there's only the future. And they wanted to, you know, comfort that, you know, they didn't bear ill will, that, you know, there was an acknowledgement that we're all moving forward and not looking to the past. And I thought that was very impressive. It was very important. It was very welcoming for me to hear that. So we look forward. But I like the way we do it over here better. And in my opinion, the caveat to that comment is we look forward, but we don't look forward without looking to our past and honoring our sacrifices. And I think that's what makes our country so great. And that's why I continue to serve, and that's why I'm here. And I can say that now because it'd be easy to look back, and this is the statement I'd like to make tonight. It'd be easy to look back to the past and talk about the negative parts of Vietnam and the sad stories and the tough things that happen and the scars that are carried. But we look at the healing. And this wall that you see right now, that you're going to see this weekend, is a key part of that. Because we live in the country that we live in, we are allowed to heal from that war. Because I was lucky enough to grow up in Kenyon, Minnesota, I had 1,500 people that served as my surrogate father and in his place. Even this community here has done a lot. Think of the healing, think of the powerful things that our country does to remember the sacrifices, and think of the things that we continue to do. Think of the character that says, and think of the goodness of this country, and not get caught up in the past. Remember the heroes that went there. Remember the heroes that have gone before us. I was shown two bracelets. I'm reminded of that because after the earlier service today, I was shown two bracelets from people that carried a bracelet wanting to know what happened to my father. And they never forgot. Because of that, we live in this country that does not forget and remembers our sacrifices. I had the fortune of growing, or I guess the misfortune of growing up as a Minnesota Vikings fan, right? Yeah. They kind of always let you down at the wrong moment, right? Well, there are some people in uniforms that I grew up with that were my heroes that never let me down, and it's the vets from Kenyon, Minnesota, and the vets that are here, and the vets, all of the vets that went to Vietnam. And we talk a lot about the World War II greatest generation. But I like a generation also that goes to an unpopular war, does their best, become very professional and adept at their job, and came back to a country that was not welcoming. And so my final part here, being an active duty service member, is as someone who recognizes who earned the phrase, "Thank you for your service." Who earned for me the welcome home that I've gotten over this 6, 7 deployments that I've gone on. Let's take some time tonight to remember and say thank you for your service to the real people who earned that. And welcome home. And let's do that with a standing ovation and a round of applause, please. You can have your seats. I guess that's all I'd like to say. For me personally, it's an uncomfortable thing to be thanked for my service, and I wanted to take that specific moment. I do it every time I can, but I'll ask you, if you thank me for my service, make sure you thank the people who deserve it and who earned it. And thank you very much, and God bless you, Vietnam vets. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. As a final thank you, I want to signal out Virginia Van Sluis, her husband Peter, and our core committee team, and all of the volunteers that helped make this evening happen, this group happen. And we have one final speaker. It's Ruth Mickelson.
Good evening. I have a short poem here. It's called We Remember You. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember you. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember you. In the opening of buds and in the warmth of summer, we remember you. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, in the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember you. We remember you. As long as we live, you shall live too. For you are a part of us as we remember you.
Please take the next few days to come and visit the wall, share time with our veterans, their families, experience the surroundings. 24 hours we are here, day and night, until 1 p.m. on Monday. And that'll be the closing ceremony at 1 o'clock on Monday. I would like to send special thanks to my wife, who's here tonight, also my son Dakota, and Mitchell, who is not here tonight, and my father, who is here with us, Vietnam veteran, and my mother, who is at home. Without your support, there's no way I would be in this capacity to do what we do to support our veterans. Thank you for all of your support. If you are able, please stand and acknowledge taps. Color guard, take charge. For those who have gone before us, we remember them as they would say unto us, whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing, we cannot say. It is all of you who must say this. We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning, lest we forget. Thank you for your attendance, your patience. Please take one moment of every day to remember the sacrifice. Thank you.